There is so much nuance when it comes to quarterback draft strategy that I'll try to cover during this video as well. But I'm going to give you my rankings, and as we go through these, I want to be targeting about what specific quarterbacks you want to be drafting based off your league settings and how you want to construct your team in 2023. But in general, you really can't go wrong with the tier 1 guys, right? I mean, sitting with Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, as well as Josh Allen through the first 3 rankings, I mean, you're going to be fine no matter who you take. Now, personally, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts in a 4-point passing touchdown format because of rushing upside. Y'all know we put out that research where we scoured all over the internet trying to find who people are ranking as the best offensive line in the NFL this next year. And it doesn't matter what expert list you look at, pretty much in consensus, everybody has the Philadelphia Eagles with the best offensive line in the NFL. Also, if you go and look at player props this season, the Jalen Hurts player prop on Underdog Fantasy is 10.5 rushing touchdowns, is 725.5 rushing yards. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just do some simple math and figure out how many points this would be in terms of an actual passing yardage standpoint. We're going to get 63 points from the rushing touchdowns. We're going to get 72.5 from the rushing yards. If you're playing in a league where you get 1 point per 25 passing yards, that's an additional 3,400 points that Jalen Hurts is giving you on the ground. Personally, that's why I'm going to have him at 1. Hell, he was the quarterback 1 last season from a points per game perspective. And our next guy with Patrick Mahomes at 2. Honestly, I kind of want to put him at 3 with Josh Allen. I think you can't really go wrong. I'm going to put Mahomes here, and I want to put an asterisk on this tier. And this is something you have to remember through the rest of this video, that if you're playing a 4-point passing touchdown format, you're going to be incentivized to go out there and grab that quarterback that can just rack up rushing yards as well as rushing touchdowns. However, if you were playing in a 6-point passing touchdown league, if you look at the overall percentage of quarterback scoring, you're going to see a slight skew towards those quarterbacks that are going to have the passing volume. For example, if we go and look at the player props on Patrick Mahomes this next season on Underdog Fantasy, you're going to see that they have him at 37.5 passing touchdowns in comparison to Jalen Hurts only at 23.5 passing touchdowns. This is the tiebreaker that you're able to use to determine these quarterbacks in your fantasy football draft. If it's going to be that 4-point passing touchdown league, you want the quarterbacks that have the elite rushing ceiling. If it's going to be that 6-point passing touchdown format, you probably want a Patrick Mahomes who can go out there and have 40 passing touchdowns on the season. Josh Allen, can't really go wrong with them. 3 straight finishes of a top 3 quarterback season. There's nothing to really talk about. Now, our next guy, Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's crazy to go this far back in time, but nonetheless, I want to do it. Let's go back to the season Lamar Jackson won MVP, because he was not only the MVP of the NFL, but at the same time, he was MVP of fantasy football leagues. There, the man went out and had 36 passing touchdowns. Not only did he throw 36 passing touchdowns, but at the same time, the man had 7 rushing touchdowns and 1,200 rushing yards. Patrick Mahomes cannot come close to that with the rushing yardage total. Jalen Hurts is not even going to touch that with the rushing yardage total. We saw from Lamar Jackson in that season a higher ceiling than we've ever had from anybody else in fantasy football. Now, with that being said, it was a very long time ago. With that being said, you've had to deal with injuries as of late for Lamar Jackson. But nonetheless, this is a quarterback that has the elite level ceiling, and I'm definitely targeting him in that 4-point passing touchdown format. Now, our next guy, we're going to be looking at Justin Fields. With Fields, he had the rushing volume last year, 76 rushing yards per game. Now, to be completely honest with you, I don't think Justin Fields is that great of a real-life NFL quarterback. Like, I know Justin Fields has probably the biggest fan club in the entire NFL. Hell, the report just came out that more money has been wagered on Justin Fields for MVP this year than Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Josh Allen combined. People love Justin Fields. From a real-life perspective, kind of whatever. I mean, 149 passing yards per game this past season. 6.6 adjusted yards per pass attempt. I do think this will improve with the improvements that they made to the offensive line this offseason, plus the addition of DJ Moore. But by no means do I expect Justin Fields to be able to go out there and have like 4,000 passing yards like some crazy people are saying. I mean, hell, if you're looking at his underdog player prop right now, they have Justin Fields at 2,900 passing yards. But nonetheless, I'm still fine drafting him, right? Because this is a quarterback that can lead the NFL in rushing yards of all quarterbacks. So that's why I'm going to be taking him in fantasy, but I'm going to want him in that 4-point passing touchdown format, not in a 6-point passing touchdown league where you're seeing the projection only have him at 18.5 passing touchdowns this next season. But of course, if you want to check out any of those player props, or if you want to get into a draft with us, I am drafting every single night on Underdog Fantasy. That's the same place where you can find all those player props. Underdog's the place where I drafted 700 teams and won $150,000 last year. It's best ball, so no time commitment at all during the season. And if you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you're going to get my 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com, and of course, over there on flockfantasy.com, you can get your draft guide for 2023. But now going over to our next guy, we are going to be looking at Burrow. Burrow has the calf strain, but all reports are saying Burrow will be good to go this next season. Quarterback 4 from a points per game perspective this past year. He ran the ball a little bit more than he did back in 2020, 2021, but by no means he's going to go out there and have an elite ceiling in terms of his rushing capabilities. A little more excited about Burrow in his 6-point passing touchdown format. 6-point passing touchdown league, I would take him ahead of Fields. But now our next guy, we're going to be looking at Justin Herbert. Herbert took a pretty big step backwards in 2022, but it's not his fault, okay? 2021, he was the quarterback 2 from a points per game perspective. In 2022, you had injuries to both Mike Williams as well as Keenan Allen. I mean, Justin Herbert really was decimated with his overall weaponry for this Los Angeles Chargers offense. But now you get, hopefully, a healthy Keenan Allen, a healthy Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston added in round 1 this year. So I actually like Justin Herbert as a big bounce back candidate this season. Now, Trevor Lawrence is our next guy. Lawrence obviously had the breakout at the end of the season. Plus, you add in Calvin Ridley. I think people are more excited about Lawrence now than ever, where Calvin Ridley looks like he's just going out there and dominating in camp. I do want to just give a shout out and fully admit that I was not expecting this kind of bounce back from Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we looked at the season that you had from Lawrence as well as someone like Zach Wilson, and we were saying, you know what? These guys probably aren't going to be good at the NFL level. He only had 5.2 adjusted yards per pass attempt as a rookie. But, oh, dear God, clearly he is just going to be an extreme historical outlier, as Urban Meyer may or may not have been the worst NFL coach ever in 2021. Now, DeSean Watson, our next guy, we're betting on a big-time bounce back. Now, if you look at 2017 through 2020, DeSean Watson had the ceiling during that stretch of the quarterback 1 overall. And he had the floor during that stretch of the quarterback 6. So you're telling me that essentially he's a locked and loaded top end quarterback 1? Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Obviously, this past year, that wasn't the case. The weapons aren't phenomenal in Cleveland, right? You have Amari, you have Njoku, you have Nick Chubb is not a great pass catching running back. Obviously, he's a great rusher, but DeSean Watson's not getting points for Nick Chubb rushing touchdowns. Now, to be fair with DeSean Watson, this is someone that's similar to Justin Herbert. I'm just betting on a big-time bounce back with. He has an elite offensive line in Cleveland. Now, this is about where you see the drop-off after this. After DeSean Watson goes, I want to say this is where you want to wait until the very end of your draft to grab a quarterback if you are playing in a regular redraft format. If you expect that a ton of league mates of yours are only going to take one quarterback, if that's what they naturally do in their fantasy football drafts, then at this point, I would say that the next, maybe 5-6 guys are all about the same range where you'd be fine getting any of them in the last round to 2 rounds of your fantasy football draft. Now, of course, if in your league you expect people to take multiple quarterbacks, then maybe you still have to take one of these guys in the middle rounds. But please try to figure out how your league mates are going to be taking these quarterbacks. Personally, I think if you take one of those top 9 options, DeSean Watson up, you should only draft 1 QB. If you take one of these later guys, I don't mind waiting until the very end of the draft and taking 2. But our next guy will be Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott dealt with interceptions last year. Dak Prescott got injured last season. Wasn't a phenomenal spot for him. But I mean, hell, you have CeeDee Lamb. I mean, now progressing 1 year older. Dak Prescott, the year prior, was the quarterback 9. Obviously, in 2020, off a super small sample, he was just straight up absurd. But I do think that he's a considerable tier down from like the Trevor Lawrence, DeSean Watson tier. Now, our next guy is Tua. I think that Tua is a severely underrated real-life NFL quarterback. Tua was a five-star recruit. Then he goes to college, posts the highest career adjusted yards per pass attempt we've ever seen in college football. Then he goes to the NFL. In this past season, he was only behind Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes with his adjusted yards per pass attempt. I think that Tua is a phenomenal real-life quarterback. Now, the issue is he's averaged 8 rushing yards per game over the past 3 years. So from a fantasy football perspective, his ceiling is going to be a little bit capped. I do really like him in real life. I think he's going to be great for Waddle. I think he's going to be great for Tyreek. It's more so a fantasy thing here. 6-point passing touchdown format. I'm a little more excited. Now, our next guy, I've decided to move up. Kirk Cousins has had 3 straight seasons of the quarterback 12 finish. Kirk Cousins, very similar to Tua, does not have any rushing upside. But if we were looking at this Minnesota Vikings passing offense, this is a team where we know they want to go out there and they want to throw the ball over and over and over again. Last year, they weren't really able to do so because, hell, you had Adam Thielen. But Kevin O'Connell coming from the Sean McVay tree, we were told he wants to lead the NFL in passing attempts. Now you have Justin Jefferson. You have Jordan Addison. You have a full offseason to incorporate TJ Hawkinson. You get rid of Dalvin Cook. Hence, you're probably not going to be able to run the ball as much. I have a strong feeling the Minnesota Vikings are going to be at the very top of the NFL in passing attempts, in passing yards, as well as passing touchdowns. Now, with that being said, in a 4-point passing touchdown league, their Kirk Cousins and his overall lack of rushing upside is going to be capped just like we said with Tua. But with that being said, if you go over and look at underdog player props right now, they currently have Kirk Cousins at 4,300 passing yards. The only quarterbacks that are this high, you have Patrick Mahomes currently sitting there at 4,700. You have Josh Allen. Not too much higher. Josh Allen's at 4,300 as well. You have Jalen Hurts down there at 3,600. You have Justin Herbert at 4,400. So Cousins is right up there with those other elite level quarterbacks with his passing projection. The issue is that rushing upside. Now, our next guy has rushing upside, Daniel Jones. With Jones, obviously, the situation isn't great. Not a great offensive line. I like Wan'Dale Robinson, but at the end of the day, you just have a bunch of depth at wide receiver. You don't really have that standout player. I know Darren Waller has been getting great reports out of the New York Giants training camp, but still, I don't necessarily think we can pencil in Darren Waller as an elite level option at this point of his NFL career. So Daniel Jones, definitely the upside shot, but I do want to be very realistic. This is someone that is not getting put in a position to succeed. Now, our next guy, Geno Smith, is a QB that is in the perfect situation this next season. With Geno Smith, this is a quarterback that's going to be throwing to DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, as well as Tyler Lockett. You have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I would make the argument the Seattle Seahawks have the best 3 wide receiver set in the NFL and one of the best running back duos in the NFL. Geno Smith was the quarterback 9 from a points per game perspective this past season. Geno Smith can rush the ball, 21 rushing yards per game this past year. So on paper, Geno Smith should be even higher than this. I don't know why. I just have something deep down in me that scares me a bit with Geno. Hell, at the end of the day, this is a quarterback that it took until he was 32 years old to be good. He started, let's count this out, 3 games from 2015 through 2021. So he is such an outlier. I don't know if we've really ever seen this in the NFL before, but it's hard to ignore what he did last year, and it's hard to ignore his situation this next season. Now, our next few guys, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, no rushing upside. They can be pretty good passers, right? I think both of them are put in positions to succeed. Rodgers this past year, quarterback 23, nothing special. But now you have Garrett Wilson. Now you have a completely new scenery where it looks like Aaron Rodgers is pretty excited to be a New York Jet this next season, which in his case, I do think that matters. But to be fair, this is pretty much the worst season we've ever seen from Rodgers in 2022. I'm expecting a bounce back. Now, the ultimate question is, what does that bounce back really look like? Now, our next guy will be Jared Goff. With Jared Goff, an elite offensive line. I mean, you love the situation he's in. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown to move the chains. I mean, you have Jameson Williams to stretch NFL defenses. With Goff, he doesn't have rushing upside. So what I would look to do if I were you, to be honest, if you are in your regular redraft league, I would look to plan A, grab one of those elite level quarterbacks. If you're not able to get Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields at a price point that you like, I would say at that point, what you want to do instead is you want to wait until the very end of your draft and you want to take someone like Jared Goff and Kyler Murray or Jared Goff and Jordan Love and take the swing on two of those options that could maybe do something for you this next season. One other thing I want to talk about with quarterback strategy overall is the smaller your starting lineup is going to be, the more important it will be for you to grab that elite level production when it comes to the quarterback position. Say you have 3 flex spots versus a league where you only have 1 flex spot. The percentage of your starting lineup output that is going to be accounted for by the quarterback position will dramatically go up as you remove flex spots from your starting lineup. So if you are playing in a league where you only start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex, at that point, that's where I'm wanting to go ahead, and that's where I want the elite level quarterback. Whereas if you start 3 wide receivers and maybe 2 to 3 flex spots, there it's probably going to be more important for you to grab wide receivers early on in your draft and not necessarily the elite level quarterback. But let's go over to our next tier where we're looking at Russell Wilson at 18. Russ was in the tier above this previously, but with the Tim Patrick injury, it's not good news for Russell Wilson. I mean, last year he was bad. There's no way to get around it. Hopefully this year he's better. Obviously you have Sean Payton coming in. Payton in years past has put up a ton of points for quarterbacks, but it's going to be interesting. I will say that. And then our next guy, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is going to be very dependent on the league that you're drafting in. I mean, with Kyler, if you're looking at this, he's averaged a quarterback 5 finish over the past 3 years from a points per game perspective. Whether or not you think Kyler Murray is a great real life NFL quarterback, he has a ton of rushing production and he scores fantasy points. Now, with that being said, right now, the Arizona Cardinals are projected to be the worst team in the NFL this next season by Las Vegas Sportsbooks. They have their win total at only 4.5 games. Plus, the Arizona Cardinals have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. So it looks like this is not going to be a great situation. It looks like Kyler Murray is going to miss a considerable amount of time. With that being said, if you can draft Kyler Murray and put him on your IR, I am very excited to grab him as a quarterback too. However, if you had to draft Kyler Murray and then waste a bench spot with Kyler Murray, there's no reason to take him. Now, our next guy will be Derek Carr. I mean, a change of scenery maybe does him well, right? But he really hasn't proven anything over the past 3 years. He's averaged quarterback 19 finish. Plus, at the end of the day, he's a quarterback with no rushing upside. I mean, just a dart throw. Jordan Love's our next guy. I know a lot of people think Love has a lot of rushing upside. Hell, the best season he ever had as a rusher was 175 rushing yards in 13 games, his final season at Utah State. To be honest with you, I just have no idea who Jordan Love is, right? If I were to come out here and if I were to tell you, oh yeah, I know exactly what the Green Bay Packers will be this next year, I know exactly how Jordan Love is going to play, I would be completely lying to you. In reality, he's a massive question mark. I'm super excited to see how this plays out, but I think more so he's going to be that quarterback 2 if you decided to wait and grab your first guy, such as like Geno Smith, right? Now, our next guy will be Matthew Stafford coming back from an injury, and Stafford had 6.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt this past season. This is also a horrendous Los Angeles Rams offensive line. Cooper Kupp dealing with the hamstring strain. Matthew Stafford himself coming off an injury. He was the quarterback 32 from a points per game perspective this past season. So, yeah, I mean, I want to bet on the bounce back, but it's a little scary. Kenny Pickett, our next guy. I mean, with Pickett, he was really bad as a rookie. And what I've typically done is write off quarterbacks when they're really bad as rookies, because if you look at historical data, it kind of tells us that they're bad as a rookie. They're most likely going to be bad as the next year player. Now, what I will say when it comes to Kenny Pickett is we saw Trevor Lawrence last year break this trend, okay? Not going to lie to you. I didn't draft a lot of Trevor Lawrence last season. Trust me. I wish I was smart enough to go out there and draft Trevor Lawrence in every dynasty league, in every best ball league, in every league I was in last year. Sadly, I wasn't. I don't think that necessarily means that we need to just continue to buy the dip on all these quarterbacks that were bad as rookies, but it doesn't mean we can write them off, if that makes sense. Now, our next guy will be Bryce Young. With Bryce Young, this is a quarterback that I want to root for, okay? I really, really do. I went ahead and did some in-depth scouting for y'all with Bryce Young. I know a lot of people are worried about the size, but I went and interviewed Bryce Young at the NFL draft. I stood next to him, and I am 6'5" and 300 pounds of muscle. So I wanted to give you a comparison of what the size difference was, because I know a lot of people were worried about Bryce Young. The size doesn't look like an issue, being that I'm 6'5". But yeah, I think with Young, a phenomenal collegiate quarterback. Not a great situation in Carolina. Obviously, just an upside shot. I'd say at this point of the draft, you probably don't want to be taking a second quarterback, and you'd rather keep these guys on the waiver wire until they actually do something at the beginning of the year. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this video. If you have not done so already, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to check out any of those player props, or if you want to get into a draft with us on the live stream, going to be on Underdog Fantasy. You can find that link in the comment section, description, or live chat. And if you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you'll get my 2023 fantasy football rankings, as well as a free trial to flockfantasy.com, where you can find a 2023 fantasy football draft guide for you. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you, and really hope that I get to draft against you in a live stream later tonight.